I'm BrianTheBlue, and welcome back to Current Calamities, where I take a break from the past to look forward to the future with the games of the present. So, depending on when you're watching this, presently it is 2020, where outside, the world is diseased and fucking crazy. And if all was well, the Olympics would have been coming up, but they've been postponed to 2021 for the obvious reasons. So while we can't watch the real deal, we can still have the console war equivalent.
Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020. The crossover sporting event not everybody was expecting.
I mean, for those that survived the 16-bit console war, did anybody believe the plumber and the hedgehog would be all buddy-buddy competing in real-life sports? And make us believe anybody from the Sonic universe would lose in a 100-meter dash?
The series has been around since 2007 and I haven't been into it much. The only game I have is the London 2012 Olympics and I barely even play it like I would Wii Sports.
But there is something to the 2020 entry that makes it just a little bit better. You probably know what it is. But before we get started, to better differentiate the kind of review I'm doing for this show, I'm going to let you guys know from now on if I'm just starting to look at a new game, i.e. a current starter, or a complete review and thoughts, i.e. a full calamity. So this is a current starter of a 9-month-old game, so let's head to Tokyo digitally.
I hope I'll be able to represent my country honorably and proudly. So we have arrived at the menu, as if I didn't know. I quickly went into the quick match to see all the events we have this year, some of which you may be familiar with from previous installments, so I tried out the more interesting ones in my mind, the first being badminton. Before you play, you can choose a number of options, including playing alone or with teams. Social distancing requires one-on-one. Choose the control type and learn the controls for each. Now initially I went with solo remote controls, but they were needlessly complex and I got my butt kicked. So it's wise to go for buttons only controls, then it'll be a breeze. Perhaps maybe too much of one. I did multiple events and found them generally easy to win, and after a while I kinda got bored of it, so much so I changed the difficulty just to give myself a better challenge. But even so, the challenge still wasn't there in some games, and I think it lacked the number one thing a game should have: fun. I grew up with Wii Sports and those games were great fun, I don't care what anybody says, and compared to this, they pale in comparison and incorporated motion controls better in my opinion. There were a few brief glimpses of fun and challenge with karate and boxing and even the dream events, but that was about it. If you want to get the most out of these events, maybe you'll need a friend or 3 to make it worthwhile.
But don't worry if you are alone, there are 2 saving graces for you in this game. One of which will take us back to the glory days of not only going outside, but when our favorite characters were bits and pixels.
Yes, we're going back to the days of old 8 and 16 bits when Nintendo was a toy company, Sega was just getting started in the coin-op industry, and video games were in their infancy. It doesn't make much sense when you think about it, but 1964 was the last time Tokyo hosted the Olympics. So here we have events in the retro graphical style, which I can dig as I'm familiar with games like track and field, which are proper sports button mashers, and here it's no different, but it may be more fun. I completely loved this section of the game. It had some great touches, from the digitized speech sounding announcer to the accurate sprites and music. This is something I can get behind. Simple games with simple controls and an appropriate challenge that reminds me of games of the past. Now I know I said earlier that the 3D games got boring real quick because of the button controls, but it fits better here as that would be accurate with what you'd be playing with if it were an old game. The 3D sports games I find have a problem with fine-tuning the controls, where the 2D games fit better with the control style perfectly. Though not all of them were perfect. The volleyball one wasn't the best and reminded me of the original NES volleyball, but this time the controls are more confusing, and I didn't dare try to do kayaking as I don't want a chance giving my controller Joy-Con drift, which is what my red neon one already suffers from since the Animal Crossing CC.
Now I have 2 controllers with separate problems in need of fixing. I'm waiting to get a 3rd set where the HD rumble somehow makes them explode.
Personally, I had a blast with shooting. Reminded me a lot of the clay pigeons from Duck Hunt, but I wish it incorporated the motion controls like Shooting Gallery and Clubhouse games. Just a suggestion, nonetheless great fun.
The retro events are good. The modern events are iffy. But if you want to get the most bang out of your 40 to 60 bucks, you should try the story mode.
If you like a cheesy, over-the-top story, then you came to the right place. Basically, Mario and Sonic are gifted a retro game system that was actually made by Eggman and Bowser. One thing leads to another, and Luigi accidentally turns it on, transporting everyone, including Toad, into the game. Eggman also reminded me of Dr. Krygor with the way he swims. So we have two plots where those in the game are trying to get out, and Luigi is seeking assistance to get them out as well. In between, we have to compete in certain games in order to loosely progress the story further.
Which is odd for Luigi's case, because you would think he'd be more in a hurry to get them out. For example, if I knew that my brother Jacob was stuck in my Game Boy, yeah, I would leave him there too.
We can also unlock new characters and mini-games along the way, and even get some facts about the games and the characters that are just plain weird. Oh, and everyone we can talk to seemed to be pretty excited about the 2020 Olympics.
It's a little weird to look back on this, isn't it? And a little funny.
But if you want a smooth and hilarious introduction to all the sporting events with a cheesy yet obvious plot, the story is here for any to enjoy. That's about all there is to the game. There are a few other modes I can't get into for obvious reasons, but I've gone through enough as it is. What you mainly get are the games and story anyhow, and in my opinion, it's a mixed bag. Some good, some I wouldn't say bad, but are lacking. It's still an average sports title, but I will give them credit for bringing in the retro style games. Even Sega knew this formula was wearing thin.
So with all that being said, what's my overall opinion?
For me personally, I wasn't expecting a whole lot as I'm not that big of a sports gamer. I expected a decent Olympic simulator, and that's what I got, and then some. The 3D games are fine for what they are. I may make an unfair comparison to Wii Sports, but this is still on a Nintendo system, and a little more could have been done to make those games feel better to control. The retro 2D games were more acceptable and even a fun little nostalgia trip. The amount of detail that went into this was evident, and I had a blast. The story mode put it all together to make one big humorous shitshow of unity between the two franchises that can keep you busy laughing at the insanity when the regular games have ran its course. All around, it's a normal diversion of a sports title that would probably be better to play with others. Hell, I'm still interested in playing the arcade version because that is a thing too. On my to-do list once everything goes back to normal. So what do you think? Do you agree with me or have your own thoughts? Let me know by leaving a comment. If you like what you see, like the video with those thumbs up. If you think anyone else would like this vid, share it around. And if you want to see more of me, this show, and others, hit the subscribe button. I'm BrianTheBlue, thanks for watching. I'm going back to the past, and until next time, I'll see you in the future.